All right, today we got an awesome topic for you. Well, actually, we both talked to a group in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's a treatment center, and we share our teachings with them. And they asked us to do a video on how to allow your personality to die and what that looks like, what it feels like, and the transformation of the personality that you are now or the identity that you are now into the identity of who you want to become or who you want to be in order to accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish. And that way we'll be familiar. So when you're going through these changes and you're feeling through it and your mind is racing and it's uncomfortable, you'll know that this is just how it is and that you're not doing anything wrong just because it feels wrong. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times it's almost like you kind of coined this for us is sometimes to break free from the old personality or the old
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle or whatever. It might feel like a psychic break, right? Because
Yeah.
you're kind of breaking the reality that you've only ever known. And when you don't understand what that process really feels like or looks like, it can be really scary, disorienting. You might be like, this isn't great. I'm going to go back to that comfort or
Yeah.
that thing because this must be wrong.
Yeah.
But just because it feels different doesn't mean it's wrong.
It should feel different. And you should feel a little uncomfortable because
Mm-hmm.
anytime you learn how to do anything new, a new skill, a new anything, you usually don't jump on the bike without training wheels and just take off. It takes time. And so, what we're going to do today, because what we like to do is offer you the knowledge so that you can build the skills so that you can be your own guru,
Mm-hmm.
empower you to be able to do these things yourself so that you're not looking to other people
Mm-hmm.
who can impose their own ideals and their own vision of what they think is the ideal thing that people should be. And so that you can yourself become what it is you truly want to be because you have the skills and the knowledge to do so yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. So let's first identify what do we even mean by personality. So the personality in traditional psychology is whatever the id, ego, and there's a super ego even. There's the consciousness and the unconscious. There's your own understanding of who you are. It's the facets of your mind and then how you present yourself in the world, how
Yeah.
you understand yourself even when you're alone and what how you handle yourself in the world and how do you operate and the habits that you have, the temperament you have. And what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of this personality is actually a product of the environment you're in.
Mm.
So we have that video if you go back. It's called like culture. We talk about
Yeah.
culture as in like, you said an organism and a
Yeah, like the
petri
culture dish, a petri dish. Yep.
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 But also we are that way because we are mini cells put together, right? So
Yep.
your family environment, your ecosystem, and then even as you grow up and the people you hang out with and
Mm-hmm.
the environment you're in. Do
The
you live out in
music
the
you listen
woods?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you go work out?
Yeah.
Are you a part of higher education? Did you not go to school? Like these
No.
things affect who you are. And those early years are really the building blocks to your personality and your
Mm-hmm.
temperament. So some people may feel scared about that because they're like, oh crap, I didn't experience very good things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or some people luckily did, but or there's still things that they might want to change. Like, I didn't like my parents doing this, and I would do this differently because,
Mm-hmm.
it affected me in this way. And that can all be true. And yet, because it was programmed into you at a young age, it also means it can be deprogrammed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we focus on here at this Quantum Mystic is helping you feel empowered to change your programming.
Mm-hmm. And that's very good. I'm glad you brought up the whole, from a young age, because we like to break down for people, give them as much knowledge as possible so they understand where things are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So from the age of what is 0 to 7,
Mm-hmm.
your brain waves are in theta. I'm pretty sure that is theta. And what theta is a hypnotic state. You're not using very much of the conscious brain. That's because during that period of time, your brain is building more neurons every day than it does for the rest of its life, right? So these neural connections that are being made, right, are being hypnotically created into your mind. Now, if you think about that, there's two ways that people usually gain knowledge and understanding of things, right? And this is in order to put it in your subconscious mind, which the majority of your behaviors are ran from your subconscious mind, and the brain does that in order to save energy and power. Mm-hmm. And there's two ways that happens is either through hypnotic states or repetition. The fastest way is through hypnotic state. And that's why the theta brain state happens from the age of 0 to 7. So if you think about all the things that you have witnessed during that period of time as a child, and even things that you don't even know happened during that period of time, was helping to create the neural network of your mind, which then creates, which is connected to emotional things that happen in your life, which is very important, the emotional things that happen, because it creates an even deeper solidification of that moment.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and so that's something that Joe Dispenza teaches, is that when you experience something with emotion, it makes that synapse in your brain stronger and more memorable. And that's actually the memories that you can remember quicker or faster, is the ones that are tied to emotion. Yeah. And that's also why the negative emotions feel like they're easier. The negative experiences are more likely to be remembered in the mind. Yeah. That's also a survival thing. Joe Dispenza also talks about things to do to increase your neural synapses and how to quicken the process. And the biggest thing he says, which is what everybody says, is meditate. Yes, meditation. Meditate. And because when you're doing is you're putting yourself into a different brain wavelength state, that you are influenceable, and you get out of your own way. You allow your ego to come to the corner of the room and be like, okay, you ego, sit down, because you're not filtering the information. You're not saying, oh, well, this can't be true for me, or I think those people can have that type of life, but not me, or, I'm too broken to heal. Our ego distorts reality, and the reality is that your brain is resilient. Yeah. And so the first step of changing your personality is recognizing how it was built, understanding what it is, and now you can start having a relationship with it. Yeah, could you equate the ego with the personality? Would that be a accurate thing? I guess people use it interchangeably. Yeah. But I think the ego in its functional state, in traditional psychology, people would say, like, it's there to protect you. It's there to keep you alive. And that's actually a good thing, right? Like, you want that. It's just that in our society, our ego has become very distorted, or when your ego is kind of trumping everything else, like your quiet mind and your intuitive self and your feelings and your connection to other people. If your ego is kind of railroading those relationships or your connection then to the divine, then it's not serving you anymore. And that's that fine line that we need to identify. And I think one of the important things that Maeve said is that, look, your ego and your personality hasn't done anything wrong. They're actually functioning correctly. And the thing about it is it's there because, as she said earlier in this conversation, anything emotionally bad it remembers the most, because in our more primal time of being as human beings, when something bad happened, it wasn't as emotional as, oh my god, I can't pay my bills, or oh, how am I gonna do? It's more emotional, like, oh shit, that tiger almost got me, and then so you have to remember, okay, if I go past this tree right here, the tiger is there, and it solidifies it in your brain for survival, right? All these things that are stress induced things inside of our body used to be there because it was literally life and death. And that's why the ego and the personality is created, is to save your life. Now, as we've evolved, right?
the things that we perceive as life changing, we say, oh my God, I'll die if I don't do this. All these things that we say, if I don't get this, I'm going to die. I can't live without it type stuff. And it's being imprinted in our brain. And then we wonder why we feel the stress that we do. And the ego is trying to protect whatever it has built a fence around, is trying to protect that with its life. So it doesn't want to die. It's a matter of survival. It's not doing anything wrong. I think what has happened, and this is my personal opinion from studies and from discussions that Maeve and I have had, is that as busy as society has gotten, the ancients, the villagers, the shamans, during those period of times when the communities were so much smaller, we had rites of passage, right? We had our grandparents and our parents explaining to us these changes of puberty and these fears and all these things that were going on inside of us. They had the time to explain to us what was going on so that the personality didn't take over.
Mm-hmm.
We learned how to utilize those things, those parts of our being, those biological technologies that we have inside of us in order to expand. And right now we are so busy doing the things of society that are being programmed inside of us that we really don't have a real inner understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish I could, in my mind right now, remember everything he said because it was really great. So he said the fence around what you've built. So that's the falsehood of your identity. Or personality. Also interchangeable. So we identify with these things and then we start protecting them. Like, oh, well, I'm married or I'm a mother. But what happens if I lose a child? I may still be a mother, but what if my life changed, right?
Or what if you don't get along with your child?
And if you're hinging your whole identity on these attachments that you have about who you are and these things that you think you are, that's what creates our suffering. Because nothing in life is guaranteed. Nothing in life is going to be there forever.
Yeah.
It will change. The only thing in life that is promised is that change will happen.
Yes.
And so we have to learn that our personality and our identity is not based on these external things outside of us. And that's where for us it gets pretty mystical.
Yeah.
It gets pretty spiritual. Because we believe that we have God's source energy inside of us.
Yeah.
That's our innate essence. We aren't born broken.
No.
We weren't born in sin. We don't have to work and heal and fix ourselves in order to belong or in order to deserve a good life.
No. It's evolution. It isn't that what we're here to do is to evolve as human beings. The earth evolves, everything evolves. And in order for things to evolve, that means it has to change from what it was into something different. And when we try to stay, and I think maybe that's why a lot of and this is my own opinion, and it just came to me as I'm talking to you right now, why we have so much conflict in keeping our personality and our ego, and the world around us starts crashing because we are meant to evolve as we go. And if we try to stick to ways of being that no longer serve us, right? When we reach the age of majority and we leave the age of a minority, and we become an adult, and it's time for us to make decisions, right? But we're still acting impulsively on a subconscious level with the same traumas that we grew up with, making decisions on what job to get, what life to live, what car to drive, how your children should act, how you should act, how you feel other people should act, what you should watch, what you should eat. And we're making all those decisions based on youthful thinking. Then I can see why, and I know for me, that's why my life was always in chaos. And so we understand that, and we really want to give you the tools and give you this knowledge so maybe you can understand a lot better so that you can be your own guru. And you can make the changes that you want to make. Because if you understand where it came from, if you know where you came from, then you know where you can go. Otherwise, if you don't understand history, history is doomed to repeat itself.
So if we were to break this down into 3 steps, the first one, identify, notice what is your personality?
Yeah.
Where did it come from? How is it built? What does it really include now? What are the beliefs, thoughts, habits, actions of that personality? And then we said identify the attachments or the fence around your ego. What is it that you are attached to? Who do you think you are? And what are the agreements in life that you've made? That's something that we use a lot, is from the Four Agreements, the book.
It's good.
It's another way to conceptualize or think about, okay, I'm attached to these things, or I've agreed that these things are true. So like if you grew up in a family that's like, well, rich people suck, or good people are always poor, and if you think of yourself as a good person, you're going to always reject anything but poverty. You're going to be stuck in poverty because you have this agreement that you've accepted as true and integrated into your identity. And so we as our human, because we believe it, the way our brain works is that it's called confirmation bias. So because we have this belief, we will only perceive something in the way that would confirm what we believe. So if I believe that rich people suck, then I'm only ever going to see, like quite literally, I'm only going to see the quote unquote poor actions of a rich person, or judge them as that way, and only see that, even though it might not be the true reality. And so our brain only looks for confirmation. And
confirmation bias.
Start looking for the opposite.
Yeah.
Like that's an act that you can start doing. Be like, okay, let me actually find some really kind, generous, wealthy people, and let me learn from them, and let me see that maybe what I think isn't true. And then you start expanding your mind and your consciousness in that way. So you're identifying what your personality is, you're identifying and then step number 2, you're identifying the attachments or the agreements you've had. You have to see that they're there, and then like in a garden, you have to like trench them up, pull the weeds. Sometimes you have to dig down really deep to get to the roots.
Yep.
And pull it out from the depths of the dirt, right? Yep. And then you had to plant new.
Yeah.
And that's the evolution part that you were speaking of. Is like you have to allow that process to happen. You have to allow the trenching up, and then the planting, and the sowing of the seed.
Yeah. And nurturing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took this course, it's called MRT, right? And that's when I really understood the personality. I've always believed that everything wanted to live. And when I say everything, I'm talking about concepts, ideas. It is all life. It's all energy. It's an energy, just like we have energy within us. And when I realized that the personality had its own life outside of, it's part of who I am, my personality. It's the mask. If you even look it up in Latin, I think it's called the mask, right? The mask that you wear to present to the people out here, that means you can take that mask off. And you have to let that die if you want it to become somebody else. You have to let it die in order for another personality to be put, the mask that you do want to present, because you build the personality. And as you evolve in life, as you age, as you experience more things, and you have more realizations, then your personality is going to change again. It's static. Life is static. It's not constant. It's not the same. It's not acute. Life is always changing, and it's okay to change. You're not being fake because you want to evolve into something different than where you came from. It's not being fake. It's actually called maturing and growing up. And so it's okay to do that.
Yeah, and what you said about letting it die, like we do everything with a heart of love and connection and intention and gratitude and love and compassion, and these are the things that we in the mystical world you practice on a daily basis. It's constant. It's gratitude. It's accepting the reality for what it is. It doesn't mean you approve it, but it is what it is, and you're still grateful for certain other things, right? And that that essence is a maturing of the mind,
Yeah.
of the spirit, to be able to do that. But it's necessary, because that's, and sometimes we can still need help with that. Like at any age, you might need to be like, help me through this. We're still meant to be in community, but you let things die in a way that you're like, oh, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the nutrients and the experience and the lessons from this experience, from this part of my life, from this identity that did serve me for a while, that served a purpose.
An honorable death.
Yeah. And it has meaning. Like, it's not just like, gotta let it die, never think about it again, pretend like it didn't happen. Like, that's spiritual bypassing. That's not what we're talking about. Actually, true allowing is like, hey, there's a life and death cycle. And then life and death, and life and death, and life and death.
Yeah, there is a rebirth in that death.
And so number 3, if it's 3 steps, is practice the new. So, okay, what lessons did I learn from this? What is the nutrients out of this lesson that I can take in and really embody in my new actions that I'm trying to consistently, or I'm reaching to consistently implement? And of course, you're not always going to be that way. Like, that's okay. That's normal. You're not going to make every hoop that you shoot when you're still learning how to shoot hoops. It's not like that. It's okay to miss.
Yeah, like I think most people, when they watch basketball, they see all these incredible shots being made, but they don't ever think about how many times they were missed beforehand. And I also wanted to circle back to when you were talking about the whole death thing. On a scientific level, this is scientific fact that your brain, when you create those neural networks, in order to create the personality that you have, when you're changing that personality, after a time, those connections die out and new ones are created. So they die out in order for new ones to grow, but it takes time and it takes practice. It takes repetition in choosing a different direction in order for your brain to decide to keep the new neurons. And your brain's like, oh, okay, so now we're going to be working like this or acting like this or doing these behaviors or thinking in this way. Your brain physically changes with the work that you put in to change it. And so that's as above, so below, the life and death cycle, right? The phoenix out of the ashes, right?
And it also relieves you from the fact, like, feeling like, oh, these cravings are coming up again. And it's been, I've been sober for 6 months or 2 years, and I still, every once in a while, get those cravings because those synapses don't want to die, right?
Yeah.
Or that person, part of your personality doesn't want to die. And so it's like, hey, can I catch you at this last moment when you're not really noticing it and you're overwhelmed and you're tired? Like, can I revive myself at this time? Yeah. And if you react to it, then it's like, okay, cool. It gets a little bit of that life again. But if you're like, no, that's still not who I am and I'm still growing in this direction, then you'll continue to, like he said, allow those neurons to die. And that's not a bad thing. Your brain, it's called pruning, like trees. Like, the synapses need to be pruned, and it keeps your brain healthy. It keeps your brain resilient. So it's a good thing.
And if you guys have a chance, you should, and you have Netflix, you should watch the Amazing Fungi, I think it's called. Wow, I was watching this, blew my mind because it was just like the neural network. And they talked about the mushrooms creating a neural network under the earth, and they connect and talk to each other. That's how and they said that it's exactly how the brain works. And some of it dies, and other connections are made. And I also wanted to say with when she was talking about these behaviors, like if you get a trigger or something, like, hey, are you sure you don't want to do this? That's not only with like chemical dependency, that's also with relationships. And that's also with going back to the same job that is sucking your soul. There's so many things, the food that you eat. And the thing about it, what they need to tell people more often than not is it is all chemical dependency. Whether you are putting artificial substances in your body or not, whatever it is that you find yourself addicted to, what you're really addicted to is the chemical cocktail that it releases inside of your body that your body is looking for. When you're TikToking all day long, you go in for 2 minutes and it's 3 hours later, That's because it's releasing a chemical cocktail inside of you in order to keep you going. And the founder of Facebook even talked about how they purposefully created the technology like that in order to keep people reined in. I feel like that's important for people to know. Yeah.
Information is power. We were just talking about how to allow the old to die. That's one way of bringing in the new or allowing ourselves to evolve, which is the third step. We can maybe name two other ways a way to do that. For me, the way that I practice the new is that I say, okay, what was that behavior that I'm trying to allow to die, or that what is that thought, behavior, action, whatever it might be, what was that feeding me? Like, what was it? What need was it meeting? Because obviously we have a behavior because it's still being needed. And so what is that for you? And that's a really good introspection to have, is like, okay, I really didn't, for me, I talk about this often, and it's in some of our other videos. Like, I had to learn to stop engaging in BS relationships with men. I knew that I wanted to attract the love of my life. I knew, though, that I wasn't going to be able to do that if I kept entertaining the BS relationships, right? And it wasn't, and the BS relationships was a symptom of me not knowing how to be in my own space, how to love myself, how to nurture my own emotions when I was feeling overwhelmed or whatnot. I abandoned myself to go search for external validation in men. And once I realized,
that was powerful.
Once I realized that that's the need that was being met, first I realized that those relationships, didn't feel good, actually, right? Because, like, it's shallow, it's not getting you the marriage or the, like, loving, amazing relationship that you actually want.
Me.
Yeah, it's like eating McDonald's when you know that you should be, like, eating this $500 meal. Like, are you really gonna...
Damn, $500 meal.
So then I was like, okay, this isn't working. That was the first thing I had to realize. That behavior I was having was not serving me, even though it felt like it was. But it wasn't. Then I had to realize how else to get that need met by myself and not go to anything external. And that's why we talk about going inwards, because it's that kind of process, and it's always going to be that kind of process.
Yeah, always, yeah.
So I went to yoga. I started going to yoga. So anytime I felt lonely or overwhelmed or by life or sad or like I didn't know who I was, I would just go to yoga, and it made me feel so much better. And I was like, okay, this is who I am, and this makes sense. I got better at saying no to the wrong people, and I got quicker at it. And it didn't upset me the way it used to. It didn't have any control over me anymore. And I was like, okay, whatever. See ya. And then you came along. So it works. That was a 2-year period, though. So that's what we also, that evolution, you have to have patience for it, for those seeds to sow, remember? We can't be going, and they say, you pluck and you check on the seed, and is there a plant yet? Is there a plant? Like, it wouldn't grow then. You're going to kill it. So just allow it, allow life to kind of guide you and breathe in life, and don't worry about it in the process. Just do your new behaviors, become the new person that you are becoming, and then just leave it up to that.
And in doing that, we haven't really talked much about the rid wave. In the new behaviors, we always say you have to recognize, identify, and then you decide, right? Because every single time something happens that triggers you to want to act subconsciously in that old behavior, there's something that's going to happen in the outside world that's going to trigger this subconscious thought, heuristic it's called, this pre-programmed behavior to act. And your brain creates those to be more efficient at living life. It's just the way it is. It's not doing anything wrong. But you can change that programming. So what we created was called a rid wave, where first you recognize, oh shoot, look at how I feel. Oh man, I feel this. I recognize this feeling. Then you have to be able to recognize, and then you identify, okay, what is this feeling about? Why am I feeling like this? I don't really want to feel like, I don't want to do what I did before. 4, you identify the behaviors that you used to do, and now the behavior that you want to do, then you decide on the proper course of action, right? And it's so many things. It's not like Maeve is just sitting all day long thinking, or was sitting all day long thinking about, oh, I can't wait to get in this bad relationship. It was something happened that had nothing to do with the relationship.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with a relationship. Or like me and doing drugs. Like something happened that had nothing to do with drugs, but because it was so intense, or I didn't want to deal with it and I didn't want to feel it, then the behavior of, oh, fuck it, let's go get fucked up, that would just pop in my head. So it's important to realize that these changes are an all day long thing and that you are going to make mistakes, but you have to become a conscious observer. Just let's say you have an anger issue and you're thinking about this person that you're going to talk to, and you practice in your mind because you know that that person just pisses you off every single time with no fail. That's actually a wonderful person for you to practice. You being able to change your behaviors is you practice in your mind, confronting, not even confronting, just meeting up with that person, seeing that person. They're in line with you at Burger King, whatever you do, wherever that person is, at the water cooler. And then you know how that person makes you feel, and practice saying something different. Just practice it in your mind. And then when it happens, try to be a conscious observer. And maybe you did say something different, but nothing changed. But maybe you made a funny face at them, but you didn't realize it unless you're able to think back and observe how you were really acting and think about it. And it's a constant work, but it works. It works. And I've made many mistakes in my life, but it works when you start being conscious about the behaviors you do and the way that you feel. That was the breakthrough for me. The way that I feel, and being honest to myself about the way I feel, and allowing myself to feel that, because that was the trigger point for me. Where before, oh shit, I feel this way, I better do this. This is what I do every time I feel something. And instead being like, oh shit, I feel this way. Oh, okay, why do I feel this way? Oh God, that hurt my ego. Man, that made me feel abandoned or made me feel unworthy or whatever. And I don't want to feel that way. So, and instead of doing that, be like, yeah, that did make me feel unworthy. Oh, I see how that made me feel unworthy. Man, who the fuck does that person know? Try to clown me on my skills. They don't know about my skills. You know what I mean? And building a more healthy relationship with my inner self.
Very nice.
Yep.
Okay, so in the recap, the 3 steps that you can use to transform your personality to really bring that change is identify and notice what is your personality, what already makes up your personality, and then identify the attachments or agreements you've made and clear out what no longer serves you, what you don't think is good for you or who you truly are, and plant new seeds of who you want to be, what values you want to practice, and the type of person that you strive to be or are becoming. And then practice, practice, practice. This is just a skill and it needs practice. That's all. It can be a lot less personal if we just simplify it to that. Okay, this isn't who I want to be. This isn't how I want to act. Let me practice this other opposite thing, the healthier thing for me. And it's just practice.
Yeah.
And
just like any other skill.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yeah. Allow yourself to evolve. Stop suffering in the past.
That is our lesson for today.
Yes. A long one, but a good one.
And thank you, everybody at the treatment center, for suggesting this. I think a lot of people could utilize this. And man, it's really helped me even sharing it again. Like thinking about it and bringing it back to the forefront. Right. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Be well, everyone.